everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. It's Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. Thanks for joining us. We've got a few people in attendance already. Kim is here, of course. Great to see you, Kim. Ajay Kumar, thanks for joining us. Christiana, Robin, Vishali, Christina. Oh, Cheryl's here. Elizabeth, Jenna, Tanacha, Dan. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good morning, Cheryl. So I have a guest here for this community discussion. I don't know if any of you guys have been keeping an eye on LinkedIn and the Twitters and all that, but Kayleen Holt has been posting some great stuff lately. She wrote a great blog post about the Women of L&D event. I just loved it, and it got spread around quite a bit. And she also recently wrote a blog post on folks with disabilities and what they've learned over the past year, or specifically even what she's learned over the past year about having a disability, and how the pandemic has kind of affected us in that remote learning space and remote working space. So I decided to invite Kayleen to join us this morning because I really want to get her take in it. I think that it's something that has become a lot more relevant for me, is to kind of be more aware of that accessibility piece and folks with disabilities, especially after our broadcast last week with Anya Hartleb Parson, when she talked about autism. So we'll be talking about that today too. Now, hey, Kara, nice to have you in. I want to make sure you guys understand. A lot of this stuff is I do the research to get what we're going to talk about today. For community discussions, I really rely on your participation in the audience. It's you guys are so valuable as far as resources are concerned, and I just would love it if you reply back whenever we have questions that are in the QA area and all of that. So we're going to start off with just take note, lots of poll questions. So if you guys feel free to jump into the polls, and then of course the ask a question area, feel free to add some stuff. And I have some slides. Hooray. So let's start with introducing you to Kayleen. And Kayleen and I, we just talked for the first time this morning in the green room. I've been checking out her blog, looking at her website at Scissor. But Kayleen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Kayleen Holt. I am a learning experience designer consultant, and I have the company Scissor Creative Services. And if you don't know what a scissor is, it's this bird right here. It's the state bird of Oklahoma. So that's where that name comes from. I have been working remotely since 2015. So when everyone went remotely for the pandemic, my life didn't change that much. And like I wrote about in my blog post, that's not only because I work from home all the time, it's because I pretty much do everything from home all the time. I have a couple of disabilities, but the one that really keeps me home is I have severe airborne food allergies. And what that means is I react to the tiniest bits of particles in the air. So like when you smell coffee brewing, and for most people, that's a really great smell. Those are actually tiny particles of coffee that you're breathing into your lungs. And my lungs don't like that. they tend to fight back. I have, it'll trigger an asthma attack or even anaphylaxis. And just a little teachable moment here. Anaphylaxis is not just swelling like you see in movies like Hitch or TV shows like The Big Bang Theory, where people swell up and, oh, isn't that funny? Anaphylaxis is a systemic response involving two or more of your organ systems. So like your skin or gastrointestinal system or respiratory system, or there are some other ones. So you may not see the reaction. Like for me, I don't get hives and I don't swell, but I have some pretty serious life-threatening reactions when I'm exposed to coffee is one of them. And there are some others that you can read all about in my blog. But
yeah, I'm going to post your blog post. But yeah, it's crazy because something as simple as this, here I am having my coffee. If we were in the same classroom or something like that, that would not work at all.
Building.
Yeah.
That's how sensitive I am. Yeah. So yeah, I've been really excited to see how many learning opportunities in particular have become available over the past year, because I haven't been to conferences in ages. I just can't. And so being able to attend conferences again is amazing for me. And there are lots of people who, even though my particular disability is kind of rare, there are lots of people who have other disabilities that keep them from being able to fully engage and participate in-person events. You mentioned autism. Well, many people on the autism spectrum, um, the noise and the all the things going on are overwhelming. I
Mhm.
also wrote about an experience with a mild brain injury that gave me sensory overload, and
Mhm.
dealt with that for several years, where I couldn't go back in the days when I still could go to a grocery store. I couldn't, because I would just have experienced this, what we call flooding, of too many things going on around me at once. And even being in an office with people talking, having
Mhm.
sidebar
Mhm.
conversations, or in a classroom, when you
Yeah,
break everybody out into groups and they all talk, that drone of all that noise going on was completely overwhelming to me. And I know that that's something that is similar to what people on the autism spectrum experience. So
sure.
the more we can open up virtual opportunities, the more accessible and inclusive we can be.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. Now, and I think your take on a lot of this stuff is going to be really interesting, because for those of us that aren't burdened with some of these issues, um, uh, we kind of just take it for granted. Um, I feel free to jump in when we're going through some of these things we've learned as 2020 closed, and we're kind of moving into recovery mode. Um, and I'm going to kind of start out with the polls here, because I did put some poll questions up. And folks, if you haven't already filled out some of those questions, jump in. I just want to go over these real quick. I kind of built these out to see what your guys' take was. So, do you enjoy working remotely? Since you kind of have to, Kayleen, I guess you don't have a choice really on that one. But definitely the majority says yes. We do have a couple people, 20%, that says no on that one. And if you guys want to detail the folks that don't enjoy working remotely, feel free to post in chat, maybe why, or and even if you do like working remotely, let's hear what you have to say about that. Also, biggest benefit you see to working remotely, and as I suspected, the flexible schedule is the big thing, and that's been the big thing for me. How about for you, Kayleen? Biggest benefit you see to working remotely outside of the safety stuff, like of
Right, I can
your
breathe.
life, outside of
Um,
your life being better.
yeah, I think the flexible schedule is really important. I love that. Especially when my kids lived at home, that was nice. Uh, the no commute, when I used to work in an office every day, I drove 45 minutes each way to get there on a good day when traffic was smooth. So that's an hour and a half at least of my day that I was
Yeah.
giving up, that I couldn't spend with my kids or,
Yeah.
doing other things. So that's a real key one for me, I
Well,
think.
that's the interestingly enough, the next question: what is your biggest struggle with working remotely? Distractions at home is the top one. Let's see. Next one is difficult to collaborate and communicate. Um, and then, yeah, not being able to unplug, loneliness, lack of motivation. I think generally, like from what I read in the research I did, not being able to unplug was kind of the big one. Let's see. And let's see. I want to mention here, Dan is saying, as a trainer consultant, I miss the opportunity to connect with people during breaks, before and after sessions.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And I feel like that is something that we need to start building into our interactions online with folks. And it's something that I'm trying to integrate more into the virtual conferences that I'm building. And I'll be, of course, talking about that more later, because we've got Community Day coming up in a couple weeks. So next question was your company's transition to remote work smooth? How did you guys do on that one? I can tell you from my own personal experience, it was actually surprisingly smooth on my end. Everybody just went home. Where I work, my day job, we actually had to close an entire division, our live conference division, which was like over 14 global conferences just immediately were shut down. I think it took maybe a week to make the decision after the shelter in place was called here in California. They just completely shut it down. Half the staff was gone, and it was shocking, but we just kept powering through it, and it was it was tough, but it went really, really smoothly. We figured everything out. Let me read some of the comments on here if anybody is saying. Let's see. Kim is saying we're fortunate to work in a field that usually can be remote. Yeah, let's see. Oh, Elizabeth saying ours was nearly seamless. Everyone home within 2 to 3 weeks. I never would have thought. And Kayleen, did you have any experience with that at all, with the shift to remote work and maybe people that you contract with or work with?
Yeah, back when the pandemic started, I was actually working for someone else. This was before I started my business. And we were contracting with an agency, a training center. So it affected them greatly because they were having in-person classes every week, up until that point. And so they had to very quickly figure out how to get their courses online. Now their office staff went home, worked from home, that was seamless, but as far as getting their classes up and rolling, that took a little bit more effort.
Yeah, right. Now I do want to point out, I remember Kara was telling me about how she had to literally, I don't know, what was it? You had to change or update, turn everything into convert everything to online. There were like hundreds or thousands of courses. Let's see. Oh, there Kara posted, when I started my job, it was week 2 of the company working from home. Honestly, it really stunted my growth and ability to make connections during onboarding because people were still stressed about the change. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Definitely. Um, let's see. And then Rick is saying in the 2000s, I guess that would be, or the 00s, I felt more connected using conference calls and shared screens than I do with Zoom. Would prefer no video option as the default. Yes, yes, and yeah, I have some stuff about that we'll be able to talk about later. Kara saying, but yeah, I handled panic goggy at the university. That must have been an interesting experience all around. I would love to hear that story. So how about next question in the poll? Do you feel like your lack of face-to-face contact makes your job more difficult? And I think it was Dan that had mentioned that he wishes that he could have kind of that, that opportunity to talk face-to-face with learners like before and after. Majority is saying no. Uh, not seeing everybody face-to-face hasn't impacted the majority of folks, and I feel like the same in some ways. And I work, with some introverts on my team. Hopefully, they are okay with me saying that in the recording. But I feel like I talk to them more now than I did when I was at the office because the office was so quiet. It was like working in a library, and so if we needed to talk, we scheduled a meeting, and then it's like, we'd go to the meeting room and say, hey, what are you doing for lunch? But so so it's actually easier for me now to talk to folks because we just get on Slack and then we do a video call, and we can actually socialize easier. But how about for you, Kayleen? Like, do you feel like your lack of face-to-face contact has made your job more difficult?
Not usually, but the one thing that I miss is years ago, I used to schedule day-long meetings or maybe 2 or 3 days with my clients, when we were at that initial analysis and design stage, where we would get in a room and we would hash out what's the performance problem we're trying to solve and how's the best way to do that. And we would talk about scenarios and things like that. And it was just so much easier when I had them trapped in a room where we could have those conversations. And now the online stuff, we're still having those conversations, but now
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky to get an hour at a time with
Mm-hmm.
people. So it's more piecemeal. And I don't know that it's a
Mm.
difference between the face to face and the virtual, or if it's just how it's a shift in how people are working. Um, and I guess part of it is the virtual stuff because when we're at the computer, people expect us to be able to multitask. Oh, I can check my email, I can answer my phone or whatever. And you don't get that dedicated time, or at least that's been my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and and part of what I had learned and sort of did some research on is environments are variable now. When you're in an office environment, everybody knows, like, okay, these people are in this room, these people are in this room, these meeting rooms are here, and so you can build that into whatever your your relationships are the way you're going to connect with people are. You had something that was very static. Now it's dynamic. You don't know what, if somebody's going to be, hanging out with their two kids while they're working, and and they're on their Chromebooks doing school. And so it's hard to say like when availability is there and all of that. Let's see,
Yeah,
Tanacha saying
it's
good.
been a challenge for learners too, that
Right.
they're in
And
a virtual class. What else are they doing?
right,
What other
exactly.
things are competing for their attention?
And next question was, has it been harder to support your learners remotely? And let's see, majority saying no, but I think that there's definitely been some challenges. So if you haven't filled out that question, I'd love to. That's a good one. Good question to ask if you guys want to go back and fill that one out. But has it been harder to support your learners remotely? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. What's your take, Kayleen?
Well, for me personally, it hasn't affected me that much because I'm a consultant and I'm not, supporting the learners directly like that anyway. And I've been virtual for a while. I like that, so far the majority are saying no, it hasn't been harder. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm,
I think
mm-hmm.
people have been really creative at finding, especially if you look at what teachers are doing in K-12 and in universities. They've just been so creative at figuring out how to help learners remotely.
Oh yeah, I've seen it with my son's first grade teacher, the stuff that she's done, and even how her styles have evolved over the past year. It's been actually incredible to see for me. I want to
Mhm.
read something out that Kim posted. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics posted that in 2017, approximately 70% of jobs cannot be done remotely. It might be a little different now, but I bet it's still less than half. In my opinion, we don't see a lot of workers. They are invisible to us, whether healthcare, construction, food service, retail, utilities, sanitation, etc. And it's interesting to me because I used to work at a credit union, and I know that they've asked everybody to come back in and start working in the administrative offices, and in the headquarters and all that. But everybody was doing fine prior, but they're just wanting everyone to go back, and they don't really have a logical reason why, other than they need everybody to go back to the way that it was.
Mhm.
And I do think that there needs to be a little more. People just need to be a little more realistic about it. I know on the tech side of things, I'm lucky because I work for a company that kind of focuses on Silicon Valley stuff, and so we're probably not ever going to have to go back to our offices. We're going to be able to
Mhm.
work from home. From now on. But I know there are other businesses like finance that are more traditional, and they want things to just go back to the way they were. They want that stability, like how it was.
And to Kim's point about so many people not being able to do their job from home, and also Kara mentioned that her environment's loud and e-learning can be difficult to hear and focus on. So I have experienced that a little bit with my clients because I have one client who I was working with them on um, redesigning their instructor-led stuff to be virtual. And silly me, a question I didn't ask in the beginning and should have was about the learner's environment. I mean, who forgets to ask that question? Sorry, I've been at this a long time and it still slipped my mind to
Hmm.
get more information about how they would be taking this course from where. And I had been working with this company for a while, and everyone I had worked with was working from home. And so my stupid brain just said, okay, well, they're working from home. No, they weren't, because these were more the frontline people who had to be there. And when they took the class, they were off in a corner somewhere on a computer, maybe on the work floor of the factory, somewhere in cubicles, and they can't hear, they can't focus on the learning. So that's one thing we have to make sure of ahead of time, that these
Hmm.
people get some sort of dedicated space that they can use to experience the learning without distractions.
Right. No, that's a good point. I do actually have something about that in the slides that I have as well. I'm going to read what Tanacha says here. I've specialized in distance and virtual learning for a while, so there's not much struggle beyond those participants that are not tech savvy or intimidated by the application we're using. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. And oh yeah, Kim saying that for the credit union finance sector, maybe the concern is cybersecurity. I totally agree. You're right, Kim. Although well, I guess I can say I don't work there anymore, but their security was terrible. Let's see here. Next question. Do you feel like your learners feel isolated and this impacts their ability to learn? Interestingly, vast majority is saying yes. Do you have a take on that at all, Kayleen? I'd like to hear it from everybody too. Do you feel like your learners feel isolated and that's impacted their ability to learn or complete what they need to complete?
The ones I've worked with haven't been so much, and I think you can build in those opportunities in the virtual learning that you're doing to help them make those connections.
Hmm.
Breakout sessions, of course, you do not want to have a lot of virtual sessions with just people talking at them. But also, if you have the ability to use discussion boards in your LMS, that's a great way for people to connect with each other, and especially if you put it as a structured part of your class, just like college courses do. So now I haven't experienced that personally, but again, I'm a consultant, so I'm kind of on the outside. Love to hear
Right.
what other people say.
Yeah. 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 That isolation piece is actually really, really relevant. And I don't know. I feel it sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm kind of in my own little, you know, m- whatever, my own little world that I'm not connected to anybody. But that's kind of always been the case, I think, for people that do remote work. Uh, you end up kind of feeling in your own silo. So let's see if anybody has anything on that. Oh, well, let me move on to the next question. Have you noticed a change in the amount of time it takes for your learners to complete their training? Well, vast majority says no. That's good to hear. That was just a question I had thought of off the top of my head. How about you, Kayleen? Have you noticed a change in the amount of time it takes for people to wrap up what you've created for them?
No, it's just a different world. No.
Yeah. And then have technical issues become a serious problem for you? Only one person said yes, but most everyone said no. Um, Yeah, and I can only think of I know that when I was just for my son's class, I know that technical issues do sometimes really get in the way, I guess, for the K through 12. And we actually, because I'm a geek, I instead of using one of the school's Chromebooks, I bought one for him so that I could support it when I needed to. But I know that there are other kids in class, just connectivity issues, things like that, and they have to drop off, and I feel terrible. I feel terrible for the kids that can't participate. And even with TLD cast, occasionally I do have some problems with speakers, and but for the most part, not a serious problem. All right.
Yeah. I had the company that I was or the agency I was supporting last year when the pandemic started, the very first virtual course we did. Fortunately, we had two instructors for the class, but one of them, her cable company decided to do some maintenance in her area the day of the class, and her internet went out. So fortunately, the other instructor was able to jump in and teach her parts until she was able to connect again via a hotspot. But yeah, things happen. So backup plans are definitely a good thing.
Nice, nice. Yes, totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that's you. I mean, it's just absolutely something you have to build into it. I can tell you right now, I live in Northern California, and since 2017, we've been having fires every fall, and now
Mhm.
every fall, it's like we've got to have at least like two or three backup plans to everything, because
Yeah.
we've been had to evacuate multiple times, all of that. And as much as I love it here, it's absolutely gorgeous. This is like wine country, and for the most of the year, it's like idyllic. But during the fall, come August, September, October, November, now, it gets a little scary. So,
Yeah.
uh,
It's
mm,
springtime here in Oklahoma, so that means tornado season. I hear you.
oh, right, right, right.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I would like to go through some of the QA stuff now, and then maybe we'll jump back to it after I go through my slide deck. We're time wise, we're doing pretty good. We're having a lot of interaction with the audience. I really appreciate that, and stuff that we're making for a good Friday here so far. But Kayleen, let me ask you this, and the audience too: has your role changed at all since the pandemic began? Has the way you do your job changed significantly?
No, because I've been remote this whole time, my job really hasn't changed that much. The only thing that's changed a lot has been the needs of my customers. So many more people are wanting the ones who weren't early adopters who held on to their face-to-face stuff for so long are still scrambling, honestly, to get their courses done virtually and to do them right. I have a new client who said, we've been doing a year of really boring training and we want to fix that because they just did the quick and dirty solution to get things out online, and now they're seeing, oh, we need to redesign these things to make them more effective.
Let me ask you guys this. So I don't work as an instructional designer in my day job. So I'm really curious about this. Has your job become highlighted at all since the pandemic began? Has there been more of an emphasis on what you do, or people like saying, oh, we have an instructional designer on the team, we need to go to that person a little more often because things have changed?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's been more visibility of what we do.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly, yeah, what I'm asking is
Hmm.
is the visibility piece, if it's been more of a thing. And if you
It's
folks in the
interesting because a few years ago, I saw things online about, is instructional design dead? And of course, my answer was, well, no, of course not. And now people are seeing, oh, it's definitely not. You need us.
right, and recently we had a conversation. We had a conversation with Trish Ewell and Christiana Hook, and we had talked about the SEC mandate that is out there. That all of a sudden now your talent development and your information is going to be really, really important to get out there. If you're somebody that's a publicly traded company, you need to have that information available to anybody that might be interested in buying your stock or buying the company's stock. And I think that that's even going to further highlight what is happening within your organization as far as the L&D roles and responsibilities are. And I think that definitely the pandemic has brought that out a little bit too. Let's see. Jen is saying, I find many faculty I'm in higher ed tend to stay away from me since they are so inundated with so much other work. Oh, how interesting is that? Lisa's saying, I find working with higher ed SMEs to be a bit of a challenge beyond the corporate SME. And Jen is saying, so most of my work gets
Hmm.
defaulted to tech support. Yeah,
Interesting.
I've heard that before. That is true. That seems almost typical in a lot of ways. Yeah, and Kara's agreeing with Lisa and Jenna. Okay. And next question. Do you feel like you've become more effective or less effective at your job since the pandemic began? Want to take a stab at that one, Kayleen?
It hasn't changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
It really hasn't. I became more effective at my job when I went to work for myself, but that's for totally different reasons. So no, I mean, I worked remotely anyway, so it's all been pretty smooth for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good. How about anybody in chat? Do you feel like you've become better at what you do since the pandemic began, maybe? Or has it become more difficult, less effective? I'd like to hear, let's see, Lisa saying much better. Anybody else? Yeah, I would love to hear about that because I feel like it is giving more visibility, like Kayleen was saying, to instructional designers, and there might be a renewed emphasis on performance. Um, okay, Kara's saying, I think honestly I've struggled because I'm in a new role. Thanks for sharing that. So not just saying I get less interruptions. Elizabeth, better, she says. So much easier to concentrate without all the distractions. Yeah. Yes. Lisa's saying people seem to understand how we work a bit better, and there's definitely more emphasis on
Mhm.
performance. Yes.
Yes, I love that.
Mhm.
When the pandemic first started and I was working for another company and we were supporting a training center, the um, the person we worked for had been kind of a naysayer about remote work and even virtual learning. He was very much old school and loved to do everything face to face, and he
Mhm.
quickly saw how productive people were being from home
Mhm.
after they were forced to work from home, and he kind of changed his mind about those things. And I think a lot of employers are seeing that
Yeah.
okay, it's not about the hours we put in, it's about the productivity, what we get out of it and how much we're
Right.
we're getting done. And it can, at least for me, I know some people who are not as productive from home, they find it
Mhm.
easier to get distracted. For me, it is so much easier for me to focus when I'm at home.
Yeah. 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 At my work, it was kind of a, I don't want to say reward, but maybe that's actually what it was. You got to work from home one day a week, and that was like,
Mhm.
like a benefit. You get to work from home one
That's how
day.
I started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
But now it's been like forced onto us. And I can honestly say, and I have this like in my slides, is that I probably work way more now that I'm working from home. That I'm, in fact, to the point where I'm up until 1 a.m. coming up with content like this because I spend too much time in my day, working at
Yeah,
my day
yeah.
job. I put in like, whatever, 10 hours instead of just clocking in and clocking out.
We're going to
Um
talk about that work-life balance in a little bit. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to add. Kim said she does feel like she's better at what she does, and it has been noticed. That's great to hear. Let's see. Now, just a couple more questions. Oh, and Kara's got in here. Oh, okay. Let me just take a little break with this question. Kara's asking you, Kayleen, what is the name of your sweet dog behind you?
That is Bailey. Um, and I have another one in here, but he's on the floor. His name is Toby, but I don't know. There's if that's better.
I cannot see. Oh, there's the dog.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, she's in the
kind
chair.
of camouflaged in that chair.
Oh my
All
goodness. You
right.
should see my other one is white and scruffy, and I have a white fluffy blanket. He just disappears when he lays on it. Yeah.
Excellent. It's always nice to have some companions when you're working from home.
Those are my office mates.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. Excellent.
I
All
agree,
right.
Rick. Best part of working from home is the pets. Yes. If you have to go back to an office when all this is over, you need to push for an office mascot or something,
Mhm,
office
mhm.
dogs, office kitties.
Very nice. All right, so back to the questioning. How do you feel like your leadership has handled the disruptions that we've faced? And it kind of goes along with that poll question about the transition being smooth. But Kayleen, do you have any feedback at all on how leadership has treated you as far as
Well,
the disruptions are concerned?
um, back when I was working for someone else, I can tell you that the challenges I had were that the people that I was working for, both my client and my boss, were more on the extrovert side of things. I'm an introvert, and I don't require a whole lot of interaction. That doesn't mean I don't need it. I do, but I don't need as much as these extrovert people. And it seemed like when it first started, when everyone started working remotely, because at that point I was a remote member of the team, but not everyone was. Um, it seemed like they had to adjust to a couple of things. One is just that personal interaction, being able to talk to people, that need that they had as extroverts to do that. The other thing was kind of a control issue, honestly. That
Mm,
if I can't see you, how do I know that you're working, or what are you doing? And so we were on video calls constantly, and it was exhausting for me. It was awful. And there was one where we had this email come out, hey, can you jump on a video call at 1:30 or whatever it was, and it was in like 8 minutes. And 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 then the person was upset that we didn't turn our videos or our cameras on. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not video ready with 8 minutes notice. Don't do that to me. And it was first thing in the morning, so it's like my hair is wet, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so things like that that I think some leadership probably has had to adjust to, especially the control aspect of knowing what employees are doing and shifting their focus from, are you punching the clock between these hours, or are you to a focus on what are you accomplishing, what are you getting done.
Right, right. Kim is saying ambiverts have had it easiest during this pandemic, able to function well with and without people around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't think I've even seen that word before, ambiverts, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Where
can
you're kind of in the middle of the
yeah.
two. And I can be like Kara said yesterday. We were in an event together, and she said, "Yeah, I can be an extrovert for 8 hours, but then after that, no, I can't even go 8 hours." But but there are people who are just squarely in the middle. My daughter is one of them, where she needs some alone time to recharge, but she also gets a lot of energy from being around people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'm an introvert. I mean, believe it or not, these types of things. After this, I have to go like and sit by myself for a couple hours because I am just not used to being in front of people and stuff. Although, I do play in a band and love to sing and stuff, but that I feel like that's a whole different other character. Like that's not even this Luis. This is the other Luis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and look, Vishali is saying I found a lot of IDs to be ambiverts. Actually, that's interesting. That's
Interesting.
interesting. All right, so let's see. I do have one last question. What are some specific things that have changed in how you do your job? That's a big question, but if you guys can just type some stuff, just throw it out there. Let's hear some things, specific things that have changed in how you do your job. Kayleen, do you have any feedback on this? And while we're answering that question, let me load up the slides.
Sure, sure. Well, I can just talk about how I've changed over the years from when I first started working remotely to now. Is that um, not having a dedicated space for working was a real problem for me. Some people can do fine with that. I don't do well with it. I have this my dedicated office. This is where I come to work, and that's beneficial not only for my mental health and work life harmony, but also it's a great tax break since I'm in business for myself. This is, yeah. But it helps me to be able to, at the end of the day, just turn off the light, shut the door, go to the rest of the house, and that's I'm home. Then this is work. That's home. It, that's the only thing I can think of. What else do we have here? Texting my
Yeah.
manager instead of just strolling by her office. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rick is saying almost nothing. I spend most of the day alone in my office pushing pixels on the screen, doing the same at
exactly.
home. That's really
Yep.
interesting. I like Lisa mentioned that she uses more project management tools to communicate, and that is a big thing.
Hmm.
Is we are all communicating differently. That we're working from home, and we've had to get more. We've got to become experts at tools that we probably never thought we would have to in the past, like Zoom, right? So
Hmm.
that's kind of interesting. To not just saying, I find myself having to be the expert on all the virtual applications and on demand to support whatever route the company takes on training. Not new, but there are a lot more options lately. Yes, totally agree. That's you guys are becoming the instructional designers are becoming the go-to people for a lot of this stuff, not just IT. Sarah saying, I made the mistake of making my craft room my home office. Now the last thing I want to do is craft in there after working in that room all day. And that used to be my stress relief. Ah,
Yes, I hear you, Sarah. I really do. When I had my husband build these shelves behind me, I had this idea of, oh, it'll be my library and it'll be a great place to relax. But it's really, no, I will grab a book and then take it to the living room or somewhere else because um this is my office, and I did used to have an office in my craft room. And no, it wasn't relaxing to go in there and do crafts because I'd go in there and see my computer and my desk and maybe paper stacked there of things I needed to do. And that's all that was weighing on my mind. So if you have it, it's great to be able to have a dedicated space. Not everyone has that, obviously. And for years I worked, I'm gonna tell this story. I worked in a corner of my laundry room. And let me tell you, that was not fun at all but at least it didn't take any joy away from doing laundry, because there's no joy in that.
Wow. Wow. That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. And there's some great comments in here. Kim saying they love the option to nap during the day. Yeah, that's definitely something. I actually have that in my slides about napping options. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Let's see, Elizabeth, my current team all remote, does a lot of messaging and always on video for calls. Yes, just so much of that. Let's see, Christina saying had my office in my bedroom for a while. Yeah, that's a big no-no. We had to
Mm-hmm.
I have that in the slides too.
Yeah, that's where I started years ago when,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, let's see. Jenna saying
it's
I've
not
been
good.
creating a lot of infographics to convey information rather than the other conventional communication methods. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, and Lisa said she implemented a non-video Friday except for conferences, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Well, let me just start going through these slides because I think that's the first thing we're going to talk about is, Zoom fatigue is a thing. It is, a real thing. I know that we don't use Zoom at my work. We use Google Meet. But I tell you, 3 meetings in a row, uh, video conference meetings in a row, and I'm done. I'm like, you might as well just, I might as well just call it a day because those take so much out of me. Got some stats from a blog from the UK or a website from the UK. 73% of people have suffered from Zoom anxiety this past year. I don't know. Have any of you guys get Zoom anxiety or video conference anxiety? Lisa's saying yes. Yeah, I hear it all the time. And there are certain triggers for Zoom anxiety, right? You're looking at if you have to present. I know that for me, I get anxiety about presenting anyway, and it actually gets worse when I have to do it on Zoom, doing interviews, 25%, client meetings, team catch-ups. Yeah, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. Rick is saying annoyance more than anxiety, but yes, I don't like it. So trying to fix that Zoom fatigue, how can you do it? You can practice your presentation. Just make sure that you're prepared. I know for me, for pretty much for anything that I have anxiety about, if I put practice in, it really, really helps. Let's see, treating video calls the same. It's kind of just your mindset, right? When like having, if just being relaxed and thinking of video calls as kind of the same type of thing, just that relationship to the camera, that relationship to the people online, just generally looking at it at the same thing. It almost reminds me a little bit of just performance in general, like singing in front of people, which I sometimes do. I kind of sometimes think about it like I'm just talking to a group of people. Like it's I try to equate it with something that is maybe less stressful than actually having to keep my voice on pitch. Make sure your tech is prepared. Always do that. That can really help. Like I know that it can be stressful sometimes if you do have bandwidth issues or problems with your hardware or even the software. Test that stuff. Make sure that it's working okay. Just face your fears. Just I know that sometimes I even role play, pretend that I'm somebody else if I'm feeling really, really anxious about something. Like for in this instance, somebody that I feel like always seems so confident on cameras, like Kara, and am I saying that sometimes I pretend I'm Kara when I get in front of a camera? Yeah, sometimes I do. And focus on the physical. Just make sure that as much as you're talking into a monitor or talking in front of all these screens, like I have 2 in front of me, plus I've got an iPad and I've got this lens that I'm looking at right now. I do remember that there are real people that are on the other side of this, of that. So yeah, focus on the physical. Kayleen, you got any tips at all? Any feedback on how, if you feel Zoom fatigue?
Now I think you covered it really well. We're just all going to pretend to be Karen now.
There you go. I don't know, like Kara just seems really relaxed every time, and then she's wanting to just like let you in on stuff when she's talking, and that's a great. I think it's almost like a natural ability you have, Kara. So not to call you out on this stuff, but it's real. And for calls, how to fix Zoom fatigue for calls. It's basically the same stuff, but talking about cameras. Now, Lisa's saying cancel. She does no video on Fridays. That can be helpful. I don't actually do that myself. Kayleen, have you ever done that? Like just turn on, have meetings where you just,
Absolutely.
well, actually you were just saying that, like if somebody only gives you 8 minutes, you're not going to turn on your camera.
I'm not turning my camera on. I don't care. No, one of the kindest things that a new client did for me was, or just something that I didn't really think about before, is we were setting up a call to talk about a project, to kick off a project. And I hadn't worked with this client before, so I didn't know what their expectations were around cameras. And they just put in the meeting invitation, audio only. And that was so nice to know that ahead of time, because a lot of the time, if you don't know, especially for women, there is a disparity between how long it takes men and how long it takes women to be camera ready. And it was just nice to know, oh, good, I don't have to put on makeup for this call, because I know there are people out there who advise you to get dressed up like you're going into the office every day with
Right.
you work from home. And maybe that works for some people. I don't find that beneficial at all to me. I'm not going to wear heels while I'm sitting here at my house. And I don't wear makeup most of the days. So no, I don't use cameras unless there's a benefit to using the camera. Like if I'm teaching someone remotely, then yeah, that face-to-face interaction is important. Or if I'm trying to connect with my team, that can be important. If they're up for it too, I always give them the option, because we all work from home. So I don't feel like I need to require them to be on camera. But is there a reason you need to see the person's face? If not, then turn the camera off.
Right. Jenna had a really good tip up here that was getting sort of upvoted. Sometimes I record myself on Zoom as a practice and then watch it, and it helps me figure out what the best lighting is, words to use, cut out filler words. Totally, Jenna. That's a great idea. Great idea. Excellent. Okay, second thing. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, for these slides, I kind of have like 5 things that we're going to talk about as far as what remote learning has taught us. There are, of course, more than 5 things, but these are kind of the 5 top things that, as I was going through, taking notes and gathering information for this particular presentation, there were 5 things that stood out to me. The second one is culture is still really, really important. Being able to establish culture, it can counteract isolation, because a lot of remote workers have those feelings of loneliness, and I know that I do. It's not much, but occasionally I do, and I'm sure that some of you may feel the same way. Communication and collaboration within these environments can be more challenging. In like, for instance, I was talking about, I used to work at a credit union. That place is completely different than where I work now. Like at the credit union, it was surprising that we got anything done during the day because we were all talking so much. We just enjoyed being around each other. It was a really, really social place, but we communicated like all the time, collaborated all the time because it was such a social environment. And if, moving to a remote situation, I think it would be a really, really big difference as far as the collaboration piece is concerned. Not so much with where I work now, where it's a lot more, I guess, like academic and tech, where people are, when I was in the office, I would literally have people like sending me Slack messages that were sitting like 4 feet away from me. So not so much there. And also just keeping everybody, like their team spirit, just that culture part where we feel like we're working together to do something, that can sort of lessen or diminish. So focusing on culture is important still. So we kind of need to evolve it. We need to change. And some of these things that you can do to help with that is to schedule regular calls with your coworkers. I haven't done anything like that. If anybody out there has, I would love to hear it, but I know that for myself, I do try to reach out occasionally and just, talk sports with one of the guys on my team, or, I have another guy on my team where we like to talk about our kids, things like that. I think that still maintaining those connections is really important. How about you, Kayleen? What do you have as far as keeping in, with teams that you work with? Do you have any tools at all that you use to stay connected?
Well, this is one that I personally do struggle with sometimes because I'm an introvert and I don't need as much of that as other people do. Fortunately, I have a person on my team who's we were in a workshop years ago together where the person talked about personality types as different members of a band, and I cannot remember what it's called, but she's the drummer. She's the one that keeps the beat for for everybody, for her social group. She's the one, she will check on people and she will help people stay engaged, and I love her for that and really
Mhm.
rely on her and try to be more like her in those respects. No, I really have been thinking that doing some sort of a regular call would be nice. I despise status calls for the sake of status calls because I feel like it's a waste of time for most people. Um, but some sort of check-in, whether it's like a happy hour virtual get together or something, would be nice because when we're not collaborating really closely on a project, if she and some other of my team members are working on something totally different than what I'm focused on, it can be easy to have that disconnect. So that's actually something I'm still working on.
Right, right. No, totally. I know that I used to love with a team that when I was at the Learning Guild, I would sometimes get everybody to pretend that we were all like on the Starship Enterprise, and we had to like play certain roles, just nerdy stuff. And I sort of look at that sometimes, with my team now, sort of how I like to create sort of archetypes, and we sort of play that way. um let's see. And Kim is saying, I think the culture aspect is different for L&Ders internal to a company versus consultants. Like at my company, I've gotten together with a couple coworkers one-on-one, which has been nice, but I do miss everyone else. Um, and then Sarah says, staying connected with my local professional association, ATD, was continuing to do online virtual Zoom sessions on HR and OD topics has been a valuable way to maintain connections. The networking breakouts are awesome. Things like this TLD chat too. Thanks for mentioning that, Sarah. And
Absolutely.
I sort of included that in as the second bullet point here, like attending events like Community Day, or just any of the conferences that TLDC offers. Bring your coworkers in. I really, like the Women of L&D event was free. So,
Fabulous.
and I was, I'd love seeing, like, as we came through, we had like teams from, like, I would see teams come in and I'd be like, awesome, this group is going to be able to experience this together. And I do think that can be valuable, sharing an experience like that. And I'm hoping, like, I'm going to mention it right now. Kayleen and I are building an accessibility event. Hopefully, we're going to launch that sometime this summer, and that one's going to be free. So, everyone should invite your entire team. They don't even need to be instructional designers. Just something that you can experience together, and do the networking, the sessions, and all of that stuff. Another thing that I found was recognition hubs have become much more popular over the past year to help keep culture sort of relevant within an organization. And those are things where a software-based tool that people can submit, like if somebody is on your team is doing something particularly outstanding, you can submit that, and this tool will actually bring them, highlight their presence, and reward them with badges and things like that. That's actually become kind of popular, and I do think that can be fun in a lot of instances. And then also working with your team on what your culture is now that you're all virtual. That collaboration thing can actually be a really, really good experience for making sure that people are on the same page. And then, of course, mentorship or buddy program within your culture, that is always a positive thing. I've seen that pretty much everywhere that I've worked. And if you don't have something like that going now, that can actually really, really help. All right. So we're actually running out of time. I'm just going to maybe, I don't know, should I just fly through these? I don't know. Well, building boundaries for work-life balance isn't easy. Kayleen, we were talking about that earlier. I sent a message to Kayleen, I think it was at 1:08 a.m. last night about, okay, here's my slide deck. I put some polls in the interface. My work-life balance has been terrible lately. Honestly, the Women of L&D event kind of, it got a lot of traffic. I've just been having to take a lot more calls lately from folks. It's just kept me a lot more busy than I've been in a while. But building boundaries for work-life balance is super important. And some of the tips that I have: don't start your day just with work. I sometimes do that. Like, I will literally get up, take a shower, and just go straight into my office and start working.
Mm-hmm.
Bad. You should do something for yourself first. Just get started. Like, take an hour to exercise. Focus on yourself first. That's really, really important. Having a schedule can be critical, like, for making sure your work-life balance is acceptable. I use a calendar that I actually keep open on an iPad all day, and I just watch that calendar. That actually really helps me. I only instituted this a couple months ago, but I actually calendar in personal things, like if I have to go take a walk, or my son, if I want to go shoot some hoops with him for a little bit, in the driveway, I will actually, like, say, take a break and go play with Soli. So it's that's important. Don't work from bed. I think that was mentioned in chat. Yeah, don't do that. That's bad. Create a space for yourself to work in. Let's see. And then take a lunch. That's something that I can be really terrible with sometimes. I don't know, Kayleen, if you have like issues like that, but sometimes I just won't take the breaks because I'm working from home. I will just like eat through my, like, if I'm building something and I don't even want to think about anything else, I will just grab a sandwich and just eat while I'm like working. And that's not good for your work-life balance. And if possible, create a separate space for meetings. I've heard that this can be really, really beneficial. And I've been thinking about this for myself. I have my desk and everything, but I do have like an outside area my wife is really great with spaces, and there are different spaces in our backyard that would be perfect for me to just do my meetings. Do you have anything like that at all, Kayleen?
No, scheduling time on my calendar has been the number one thing that I've been doing in the last year or so that has really helped with my work-life harmony. I like the word harmony because balance kind of implies that the two should be equal, when sometimes work requires a little more, sometimes home requires a little more. But I have been learning to say no to projects that don't excite me. And I have been learning to say no when clients want to meet on a certain day or time that is scheduled for things like professional development or business development. I've got those marked on my calendar, and I'm learning to protect that time a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. It's so important. Well, it's 9:00. We've done an hour. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up with this slide. Workplace is forever changed. And something that I remember in the Women of L&D event, I think it was Laura Payette, who said, we've got to give each other some grace. We've got to just like let each other, breathe a little bit. We've all been through a whole bunch. Stuff is just going to continue to change. Things are not over. I mean, we're evolving. The workplace is evolving. Our home lives are getting integrated into all this stuff. We really need to give ourselves some room to grow with all of it. And I think that we're doing a good job of that. And just keep on powering through. And with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Kayleen, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me. This was
Yeah,
fun.
I really appreciate it. Let me close this quick. I got to close my my share window and get us back on screen. Now, I want to mention, everybody, 2 weeks from today, Community Day. Yay, members, I sent you guys out an email. I'm going to actually open up the space so that you can get in there and start playing around if you want. I'll do that right after that we wrap up here. But please join us on Community Day. The focus is on story. And the reason I wanted to go with that is because I feel like we have a lot of new stories that are happening. We're exiting out of one chapter and kind of coming into something new. It's spring. I just feel like that's relevant. Rance Green is going to be opening it up. Author of instructional story design. It's absolutely amazing. One of my favorite TLD casts ever was one he did where he was just holding up cards and telling this story about PowerPoint. That was just so good. And the rest of the guests are great. I'll paste the link to the to the landing page for that too. So keep an eye out. I'll definitely be pushing information about that event on the Twitters and the LinkedIn and all that. And that's it. Kayleen, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. I've got Jack Pierce coming, and yeah, there's more planned. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.